afternoon. You're with us with the ASEAN Business Report. I'm Patsurang Desha Putharangsi.
And I am Nirasha Malisak. Let me start off with the local news as the Thailand ruling Pheu Thai party is closely watching the Constitution Court's ruling on the legality of the emergency decree on the 1.14 trillion baht public debt transfer and issuing the 350 billion baht government bonds. The court is scheduled to announce its ruling around 2 in this afternoon. A majority of legal experts at the Pheu Thai party believe that one of the two decrees, especially the one for transferring the huge debt from the finance minister and to Bank of Thailand, could be deemed unconstitutional by the court because the current 2007 charter has strict criteria on the definition of emergency. The 1.14 trillion baht debt is the legacy of the 1997 financial crisis in which the government had to bail out failed banks and finance companies, resulting in a huge public debt. The opposition Democrat Party, which petitioned the Constitution Court to examine the legality of both emergency decrees, said the government will have to take its responsibility if one or both decrees are deemed unconstitutional. However, Deputy Premier Chalermyu Bamrung and other Pheu Thai officials said there is no need for Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra to quit or dissolve the House of Representatives. The opposition Democrat Party said it will pursue further actions against the government if it did not take responsibility in the event of that one or both decrees were deemed unconstitutional by the court. For instance, opposition MPs will consider submitting a motion to the Senate to impeach the entire cabinet for approving legislations that are unconstitutional.
And Kunirasha, our reporter Kun Jarawi Gitisin is now the court watching closely. Yes, about the upcoming ruling of this legality of the two decrees. So let's speak about it more. Good afternoon, Kun Jarawi.
Good afternoon, Kun Nirasha and Kun Patsurang.
Good afternoon.
Now I'm at the Constitutional Court, which will be handling the case of the two emergency decrees today. Both of which we know, but just for a recap, one of it is the borrowing of 350 billion baht to finance the water management projects and flood rehab projects, where the plaintiffs, the opposition MPs, and some senators have said that there is no urgency. Although there is urgency on the flood issue, but their proposal is not complete. There is no concrete measure, and there is only 3-page proposal to borrow such a huge sum of money. The second decree is that the transferring of a huge legacy debt since 1997 financial crisis, to transfer that debt from the finance ministry to the Bank of Thailand. Now, the expectation of how the verdict will turn out, there are several expectations. One is that either one of the two decrees will be nullified, meaning that the court may choose to nullify either one of the decrees, or they may approve or not approve both decrees. So, there's 3 outcomes. Either one of them have been shot down, or both pass, or both has been shot down. Anyways, there has been some arguments that the decrees, if it will pass, it will mean that the cabinet has already approved the decrees. So, and the cabinet and the government may bring up the debate that they have the majority of the vote in parliament, and they have already approved the decree by the cabinet, so they have the right to issue this emergency decree. Nevertheless, the court has started since 9 or 10 a.m., started deliberating the case, considering the case, and it is expected that by 2 p.m. of today, they will be televising their verdict of the case.
Right, so far, Kun Jarawi, are there any interesting moves from both parties at all?
Right outside the court, there is no movement at all from both sides. We have heard that the government may send its representative, which is the permanent secretary of the finance ministry, and on the other side, the Democrat MP Gon Satikawanit may come, as well as the Senator Kamnoon Sittisaman, but we'll have to wait up for the development later on.
Right, so any interesting atmosphere around there?
Tense or not?
The reporters are all sticking to the event, and they've been checking the latest news and everything. But it's just like a troops of reporters outside the court right now.
So everyone are waiting for the 2 p.m.
That's right. And although we cannot enter inside the court, but the court will broadcast when they're handling the case, when they're giving out their verdict, we'll have television that televises the atmosphere inside so that reporters can see and can listen at the same time.
Okay, right. Thank you very much, Kun
Thank
Jerry.
you. Goodbye.
All right. Yeah.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Well, for Kasikorn Research Center and Tisco Research are the first two economic houses to upgrade their 2012 economic forecasts after the revision by the National Economic and Social Development Board. While the economic think tank raised its projection for economic growth this year to 5.5 to 6.6%, K Research yesterday raised its projection from 3.5 to 4.8% to 4.5 to 6%, and Tisco from 4.5% to 5% because of a low base of export and public spending in 2011. Tisco revised its export growth forecast from 7% to 9.6% after the 39% month-on-month increase in December's manufacturing output. Public spending is expected to expand by 11.9% this year, reversing the previous forecast of the contraction, assuming that 95 billion baht from the 350 billion baht post-flood spending is disbursed this year. Meanwhile, Siam Commercial Bank's research arm also expects gross domestic product to expand 4.5 to 4.7%, thanks to higher consumption, public investment, and public spending. The bank sees a full recovery in manufacturing in the second half when machinery imports are completed and all firms resume normal operations. However, GDP this quarter is likely to shrink from the first quarter of last year. K Research said growth will be significantly influenced by the recovery in the manufacturing sector as well as post-flood investment. And further boosting the economy will be public spending, but the House expects investment under the 350 billion baht fund to become clearer next year, while post-flood private and public spending will boost GDP growth by at least 1 percentage point, or more if the government can kick off more investment plans. The research house noted that though the post-flood investment would spin off short-term benefits to the economy, the disaster could pose long-term disadvantages. Huge losses could encourage foreign companies to relocate for risk diversification, and some businesses may also delay investment until the flood management plan takes shape. The Thai economy is also going through a structural transition as operating costs here are higher than in other regional countries. And the gap will also widen when the minimum labor wage is raised nationwide, according to K Research.
And now let's update on the 3G service as the board of CAT Telecom will review its controversial 3G contracts with the True Corp, the result of which will determine whether it would move forward with the True and the corporations or scrap the deals. According to a news report citing a CAT board director, the revision will begin once the board receives the results of a fact-finding from management and operations officials. The source pointed out that the clause that puts state-owned CAT's 850 MHz frequency to exclusive use under the contracts between CAT and True Corp. This allows BFKT Thailand, a company that owns Hutch Mobile Service, to procure cellular towers and signal system on CAT's behalf to provide 3G service using the high-speed packet access technology. Concerns have been raised about how BFKT has such an exclusive control of the frequency used and if that violates Section 45 of the country's Frequency Allocation Act.
Kanika Shalit Aphon, the president of the Siam Commercial Bank, announced that the bank has cut its lending rate by 0.125 percentage point in response to falling interest rate trend. Also, she said the deposit rate at Siam Commercial Bank will also be cut to the same rate by 0.125 percentage point. The new lending and deposit rates at Siam Commercial Bank will take effect today. When the rate cuts, Siam Commercial Bank's minimum lending rate will be adjusted to 7.125% a year, while its minimum overdraft rate will be quoted at 7.425%. The savings rate for individuals will be quoted at 0.75%. Moreover, Siam Commercial Bank has launched a new campaign to attract savers. A 7-month fixed deposit rate will offer an attractive rate of 3.3%, while a 10-month fixed deposit rate at 3.4%. Siam Commercial Bank has taken the lead in cutting the interest rates after the Bank of Thailand has pursued an accommodative monetary policy to support the economic recovery after the floods. The central bank's repurchase rate has been kept at a low 3% in spite of inflationary pressure.
Now, despite the second bailout for Greece, however, the U.S. stock still hasn't changed or moved anything. For more information after the break.
For Greece, well, Greek ministers arrived at Parliament late on Tuesday for the first meeting with Prime Minister Lucas Papademos since the Eurozone's approval of a new 130 billion euros rescue package. The deal, reached in Brussels in the early hours of Tuesday, gives Greece its second financial lifeline in less than 2 years. The deal includes a combined package of foreign loans equivalent to about 22,000 euros for every Greek citizen, children included. National debt already amounts to about 32,000 euros or $42,300 each. The hope is that the aid will grant Greece the breathing space to enact widespread reforms and set it back on a path to growth. The initial relief created by the 17-nation Eurozone's approval of the rescue package was offset by a grim reality. Greece faces many more years of sacrifices on top of a difficult 24 months of austerity measures that have contributed to record-high unemployment and a rapidly contracting economy. Papademos called a cabinet meeting to discuss further austerity measures that accompany the second bailout, which will be included in emergency legislation to be tabled late on Tuesday. The draft law will force private sector employees to accept further salary cuts as a result of the minimum 751 euros monthly wage being cut by 22% and further cut pensions. With the country's unions fiercely oppose the additional cutbacks and have called a protest rally outside Parliament on Wednesday.
Still stay with the European economic crisis, as the euro was flat against the dollar in Asia today as enthusiasm over a eurozone agreement on a bailout for Greece faded due to concerns that more must be done to get the country back on track. Dealer says the euro faces downward risk as investors are likely to start adjusting their position. The euro changed hands at 1.3236 US dollars and 105.63 yen in Tokyo morning trade, compared with 1.3238 US dollars and 105.50 yen in New York late on Tuesday. The dollar edged up to 79.82 yen from 79.69 yen. Yesterday, the European single currency jumped to 1.3293 US dollars within minutes of the announcement of a deal approving a 237 billion euro rescue for Greece before it eased back throughout the rest of the day. Analysts warn the nation's economy remains in a parlous state and Athens faces a giant task in sticking to tough reforms over the coming years. Japan's finance minister Jun Azumi said Tuesday that the G20 was not yet ready to agree on providing more funds to the International Monetary Fund to fight Europe's debt crisis. He said this weekend's meeting would give them a chance to examine progress in the European situation.
Well, U.S. stocks indices were mixed Tuesday as investors weighed a second bailout for crash-strapped Greece. Greece was offered a second bailout early Tuesday after Eurozone finance ministers topped up a 130 billion euro or about $172 billion rescue package that was no longer enough to save Athens from default. The blue-chip Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 15.82 points or 0.12% to 12,965.69. The broader Standard & Poor's 500 index gained 0.98 points, or 0.07% to 1,362.21. The technology-heavy Nasdaq slipped 3.21 points, or 0.11% to 2,948.57. The U.S. currency dropped against the euro to 75.5 euro cents from 76.11 euro cents on Friday. The dollar rose against the Japanese currency to 79.72 from 79.55 yen.
Now, according to the Federal Reserve's Bank of Minneapolis, inequality of earnings in the U.S. rose to a post-war high even as transfer of wealth, such as unemployment benefits, reached a record in 2010. Fabrizio Perri and Joe Stensberg wrote in a paper released today by the Minneapolis Fed that the bottom 20% of the U.S. population has never done so poorly relative to the median during the whole post-war period. The report said low-earning households have become, during the course of the Great Recession, more vulnerable due to large losses in wealth. President Barack Obama has made inequality a rallying point for his re-election campaign, calling for legislation to raise taxes on millionaires after Congress extended a temporary payroll tax cut for workers. The Senate and the House of Representatives cleared the $145 billion payroll package on February 17, and the White House said Obama plans to sign it into law this week. Money earned by the bottom 20% of U.S. households fell by about 30% compared with the median during the recession as workers lost their jobs or decided to leave the labor market, according to the Minneapolis Fed study. Perry and Steinberg said households that were in the bottom 20% of earning in both 2006 and 2008 experienced a $159 decrease in disposable income or money available after paying income taxes. Those that moved into the bottom quintile from a higher earning category had $12,236 less to spend in 2008 than in 2006. The report found that other government redistribution policies, including taxes, unemployment insurance, and others, have provided an important cushion against the effect of earning declines on disposable income and consumption. They have not fully shielded households' disposable income from these earnings fluctuations. They further suggest that the Great Recession could have indeed had major redistributive effects at the bottom of the distribution. The payroll tax measure, in addition to extending a 2 percentage point tax reduction for workers, will continue expanded unemployment benefits and avert a cut in doctors' Medicare reimbursements through the end of this year. Analysts say if Congress had not acted, the provisions would have expired at the end of the month.
But for Japan, the country wants to draw in foreign investments in projects that could see areas worst affected by last year's March 11 disasters developed into future eco-cities. There was a statement by a senior Japanese official told a group of journalists from the Asia-Pacific just recently. Joe Nakano, Parliamentary Vice Minister for Japan's Foreign Affairs, welcomed investments as a contribution to the country's recovery efforts. When asked how Brunei and other members of the international community could help nearly 1 year after the Great East Japan earthquake struck, Nakano said they are to seek more possibilities to invest in Japan, especially the most affected areas, because they have tremendous opportunities for that. However, he urged potential investors to visit Japan and witness the recovery efforts firsthand to ease any concerns in traveling to the disaster-struck nation. He explained that media influence has led to some imaginative public beliefs that the entire Japan is under a difficult situation. The foreign affairs official said that to invest, people have to see and understand the situation of what's going on in Japan and also the affected areas. The ministry had earlier brought in a group of journalists from Europe and extended the program to reporters from Australia, Hong Kong, and other Asia-Pacific economies. The latest batch of writers were taken on a roadshow of briefings by Japanese experts, officials, and local business community representatives across Tokyo and 3 tsunami-struck prefectures in Japan's Tohoku region. Nakano said the program was one of the country's recovery effort campaigns, and thus he told the journalists just to report and let the companies know that Japan is now safe and most of the places are no problem. In a group interview on the first day of the program on February 8th, Deputy Cabinet Secretary for Public Affairs Noriyuki Chikatsu said the inviting foreign investments for open reconstruction of the affected areas was partly in response to the outpouring of international aid for Japan following the disasters, which has left some 20,000 still missing or dead. To attract foreign investments, Chikatsu, who is also Japan's Director of Global Communications, said that the government was discussing in the context of rebuilding earthquake and tsunami-affected areas into eco-cities that would be sensitive to needs of the vulnerable parts of the communities there, as well as consider environmental concerns. Chikatsu added that international collaboration could contribute to adding more relevance to the reconstruction efforts in the affected areas.
And now let's update on gold with Kun Tipa Nawawattanasub, the CEO of YLG Bullion and Futures. สวัสดีค่ะ
Good afternoon, Kun Tipa.
สวัสดีค่ะ
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 คุณทิพา can you please give us the weekly roundup of gold market today, please?
For gold market for last week, the gold price was closely tracked the euro as the investor still anticipate the result of the Eurozone finance minister meeting on the Greece bailout package. However, within the beginning of this week, there's a good news about the Greece situation. So Greece has been granted a second bailout package of 130 billion euro. So this aim to help Greece to avoid default and reduce the debt of Greece down to the level of 121% of the gross domestic products by the year end 2020. So this makes the euro to rebound back, and also it pushed the gold price to go up sharply for this week.
Right.
So Kuntipa, what should investors keep in mind when deciding to buy or sell the gold this week?
For this week, the gold still follow euro. So like for short-term investor, we still recommend investor to have a closely look at the euro price, and then this will affect the gold price in the short term. However, for a medium-term and long-term investor, we still suggest them to wait for a collection, because right now the gold price tried to break the level of 1,760 US dollar per troy ounce, and then we aimed at this week we probably see the level of 1,780 US dollar per troy ounce, or the highest would be around 1,800 US dollar per troy ounce. So at this level, at 1,780 to 1,800 US dollar per troy ounce, this should be a range for investor to sell in the short term and wait for the collection, and then we probably see the collection at the level of 1,740 US dollar per troy ounce to the level of around 1,720 US dollar per troy ounce. That should be the level that we recommend investor to start some collection, maybe around 30% or 40% of the portfolio.
Right. So what about the situation in Iran that the country has stopped selling oil to UK and to France? With this situation, is there any effects on investors at all?
Right now, there is still not an effect immediately, but then this will affect in terms of the medium term and long term, because it would make the oil price go up a lot higher, and then and as a result, the gold price will adjust higher also.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kun Tipa, for today.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Goodbye. So after the break, come up with more phone interviews with Kun Nawawattanasub, President of the Thai Bond Market Association.
Welcome back to the program. As Kun Pasurang mentioned it earlier, now we have a phone interview with Kun Nawawattanasub, the president of the Thai Bond Market Association. สวัสดีค่ะ
Good afternoon, Kun Niwat.
Good afternoon, Kun Neelachara and Kun Pasurang.
Right.
Thank you. Well, in the first 2 months of this year, foreign investors have been net buyers of some 200 billion baht of Thai bonds. According to you, why do you think they're interested in this so much?
Well, first of all, because there is the investor, now the foreign investor look for some secure assets, right? Which Thai bond is one of the kind of the secure asset that they are interested because of two of the reasons: our Thai economy and also the economy in Europe, the crisis in Europe that's still there. So one of the investor, especially foreign investor, look after for all around the emerging market in Asia for invest in there for their investment.
Right.
That's a reason. And also, if you look at the number of investment that they did, that's the figure that you just mentioned, around 200 billion, which in this 200 billion, a quarter of 200 billion is a long-term bond, and the other 3/4 is a short-term. The reason is a lot of inflow into this market because of our currency exchange. That's another reason, which you can see from the mid of January. Our exchange is from US to Thai baht is around 31.8.
Right.
Now it's 30.6. So it's just 1 month they can gain from the exchange for around 4%. That's what another reason that a lot of investment flow into Thailand at this moment.
So between the corporate bonds and government bonds, Kun Niwat, which products are more attractive to the foreign investors?
Of course, the foreign investor, when they invest in any assets, the most important of their investment is a liquidity. That means if they want to invest and if they want to exist, they should be able to exist. So for the corporate bond, the size of the corporate bond normally is quite small, around 10 billion, which is considered small for the foreign investor. So the most valuable for the foreign investor will be government bond. I would say that.
Well, the government plans to run a deficit spending of 400 billion baht this fiscal year, and it's actually intends to create a massive debt of 350 billion baht to tackle the flood situation. So for that, the government will have to issue bonds to raise the money. So do you think that this would lead to a massive influx of government bonds into market?
Well, there will be the extra ordinary. That means the government bond that issue in this year, we can anticipate that it will be more than the past. But however, for the domestic saving is still a lot. So the demand in the domestic still already still a lot. So even the government going to issue that 750 billion baht in this year, I still believe that they still have a demand on that, so it shouldn't have any effect on the yield curve.
Right, I see. Kun Niwat, how do you see the prospects of Thai bond market throughout this year?
Okay, I can see the growth in the Thai bond market, not only in the government bond, but also on the corporate bond that's going to have a growth more than 10% in this year.
Right.
Which at this moment we have a corporate bond at around 1.3 trillion. That's outstanding, which we can expect that it could be 1.5 trillion at the end of this year.
Well, Kun Niwat, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Have a great afternoon.
Bye-bye. So Export, Import or Exim Bank of Thailand is bracing for any problems arising from the recent decision by the Financial Action Task Force, a global financial watchdog, to place the country on its watch list, which could have an adverse effect on small exporters. The bank also pledges to provide more loans to Thai interests wanting to invest in Myanmar and other countries. The Thai Exim Bank President Kanit Sukontaman said yesterday that the FATF move has not yet affected the bank or its customers, but the bank is ready to provide information if counterparties abroad request anything related to the issue. Kanit was referring to the FATF's decision to place Thailand and 14 other nations on its watch list, calling for the countries to fully address their perceived deficiencies in the fields of combating money laundering and financial terrorism. However, large firms may not be affected due to their good reputation of doing business for a long period, but a small firm might face difficulties in conducting export-import businesses in the future. Kanit predicts that as the Thai authorities are committed to complying with international standards by putting in place 2 new pieces of legislation, problems should not arise. He also said Exim Bank this year would work with commercial and state-run banks to provide loans to Thai investors planning to invest in Myanmar, as a neighboring country is opening up for foreign investment. Outstanding Exim Bank lending to the Burmese government is currently about 2 billion baht, and the country has never defaulted on its repayments. Moreover, the bank no longer needs an interest subsidy from the government, as it has restructured the Myanmar lending by borrowing long-term funding to cover the cost. Referring to the controversial loan involving the sale of equipment to the Myanmar government by the telecom business of former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. And meanwhile, the bank this year will mainly promote Thai's small and medium-sized enterprises through loan extension, export credit guarantees, and training programs.
Now, Thailand's cross-border trade increased by 15% last year due to closer cooperation under the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement or AFTA and the liberalization of Myanmar markets. Deputy Director General of the Foreign Trade Department, Pongpan Jianviriyapan, said yesterday, cross-border trade continues to play a more important role for Thailand with closer economic cooperation ahead of the ASEAN Economic Community Agreement. Pongpan shared that more ASEAN members, especially Cambodia, Laos and Myanmar, are reducing tariffs. She forecast that cross-border trade with Myanmar would increase significantly this year as the country has opened up its market and plans to open more border checkpoints with Thailand. Thailand expects cross-border trade will surge beyond 1 trillion baht this year. Trade with 4 countries bordering the kingdom, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos and Malaysia, grew 15.6% to 899.78 billion baht last year. Exports to this nation were worth 587.35 billion baht, up by 20.7% from the previous year. Imports rose 7.1% to 312.42 billion baht, while Thailand enjoyed a trade surplus of 274.93 billion baht with its neighbors last year. Malaysia accounted for almost 65% of cross-border trade, followed by Burma with 17%, Laos with 11% and Cambodia at 7%. Total trade with Malaysia rose 12.7% to 560.65 billion baht. Exports grew 18.4% to 379 billion baht, while imports were 181.29 billion baht, up by 2.3%. Two-way trade with Myanmar was up 14.3% to 157.59 billion baht. Shipments improved 19.2% to 60.59 billion baht, while imports increased 11.5% to 96.99 billion baht. Thailand's long-standing trade deficit with Myanmar is due to import of natural gas. Thai exports to Laos also improved by 27.6% to 81.79 billion baht, while imports surged 26.7% to 29.22 billion baht. Shipments to Cambodia grew 28.4% to 65.6 billion baht, while imports improved by 14.1% to 4.91 billion baht.
Let's look at some regional headlines. Well, despite prevailing global economic uncertainties, Malaysia's total foreign direct investment inflows sprung a surprise and climbed to 32.9 billion ringgit last year, eclipsing the pre-crisis level of 29.1 billion ringgit achieved in 2007. International Trade and Industry Minister Datuk Seri Mustafa Mohamad said the manufacturing sector accounted for the largest share of FDI inflows, comprising 50.1%, followed by the services sector with 27.3% and mining and quarrying at 22.2%. Brazil's Vale Group, the world's second largest mining company, Asean Technologies Incorporation and Infineon Technologies are among the foreign companies that expanded their operations in Malaysia last year. About 72% of FDI came from Asian countries, with Japan topping the list with 10.1 billion ringgit, followed by South Korea at 5.1 and Singapore at 2.47, while US contributed 2.5 and Saudi Arabia with 2.17 billion ringgit. With the intensified efforts to attract investments, he hoped the country could achieve similar numbers this year. Data released by the Malaysian Industrial Development Authority showed total investments approved in the manufacturing, services and primary sectors leaping at 40.7% to 148.6 billion ringgit on the back of the 4,964 projects, comparing with the 105.6 billion ringgit in 2010. Mustafa said the domestic investments in 2011 continued to dominate the approved investments, accounting for 55.4%, or about 82.3 billion ringgit of the total approved investments, while foreign investments totaled 66.3 billion ringgit. The manufacturing sector accumulated a total of 846 projects valued at 56.1 billion ringgit, an increase of 18.8% from 47.2 billion ringgit recorded in 2010, while the services sector recorded investments totaling 64.4 billion ringgit, surging by 75.5% from 36.7 billion ringgit previously. Sarawak attracted the most approved investments at 14.35 billion ringgit, followed by Penang with 14.04 billion ringgit and Sabah at 13.68 billion ringgit. And meanwhile, he said the country had surpassed targets for realized private investments by achieving 94 billion ringgit in realized investments in 2011, exceeding the 83 billion ringgit target set previously. He said he hoped the country could achieve the target of 115 billion ringgit in annual average realized private investments set under the 10th Malaysia Plan. Bank Islam chief economist Azrul Azwar Ahmad Tajuddin said it was a good thing to see a revival in private investments with the country surpassing targets set. But however, the private investment share to gross domestic product ratio is still at low levels despite the revival of private investments. He said before the Asian financial crisis, share of private investment to GDP took between 20 to 30%, and just before the crisis hit, it was at a peak of 35%. However, currently it was hovering at about 11% only. He also added, although the data presented is very clear, he would like to see the data that shows FDI inflows by state. RAM Holdings Group Chief Economist Dr. Ye Kim Leng also echoed the same sentiments that said fresh data should help boost investor sentiments given that the FDI inflows were still present despite the perceived economic slowdown. He added lastly that this points to Malaysia's ability to attract foreign investments. However, they still have to see in relation to the overall FDI inflows of other countries and compare the share with them.
Now, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation (HSBC) has ranked Vietnam 7 out of 10 countries seen as having the best prospect for long-term growth. It also forecast that the nation could become Asia's next big electronics hub. The announcement made on the financial news website CNBC.com forecasts how the economic landscape will change during the next 40 years. The bank projected the country's annual growth at 5.2%, with its GDP rising to $451 billion by 2050. It said that Vietnam was the world's second largest exporter of rice and agricultural exports. However, this was rapidly changing as the government moved to liberalize and diversify the economy. The HSBC report said that while state-owned enterprises contributed 40% of the country's GDP, overseas investment had been increasingly sharply since the country became part of the World Trade Organization in 2007. Vietnam's low-cost manufacturing base had attracted a wave of foreign investors, particularly in the retail, clothing, and technology sectors, making it a cheaper alternative to China. Intel, the first international technology company to make a major investment in the country 6 years ago, has helped raise Vietnam's profile as an investment destination. A long list of companies, including Samsung, Canon and Foxconn, have followed, investing millions of dollars into developing manufacturing operations. According to the HSBC report, analysts said this was helping to lay the foundations for Vietnam to become Asia's next big electronics manufacturing hub.
A Chinese company is aiming to invest in cement production in Cambodia, according to officials at the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Energy. The China Triumph International Engineering Company, or CTIEC, would become one of Cambodia's biggest cement producers and would invest in the kingdom, said assistant to the CTIEC president Ma Ming-liang. Although contracts for producing cement in Cambodia have been given out to various local companies, said Sim Sisoka, director of the development department at MIME, CTIEC's proposed investments would be welcomed because some local companies lack the capital for large-scale production. Investing in Cambodia's cement production is risky. However, a local investor in Kampot Cement, Kof Palabuth, a joint venture with Thailand's Siam Cement Group, said, and the country still lacks the natural resources to produce large quantities of cement.
Now, CEO Talk is on its way, coming up after the break.
Well, before the CEO talk, let's look at some regional updates first. Well, Laos Deputy Prime Minister Thongloun Sisoulith said Laos has recognized the significant development assistance that Germany has provided and expresses appreciation for the country's ongoing help and support, local media reported. Thongloun Sisoulith, also Laos Minister of Foreign Affairs, highly valued Germany's contribution to Laos at a meeting with visiting German Federal Minister of Economic Cooperation and Development, Dirk Niebel. Well, Niebel's visit is said to be the first by a high-ranking German official to Laos in the past 17 years. Thongloun was quoted by the state-run Vientiane Times as saying, "The assistance from the German government is valuable and effective and has significantly contributed to development in Laos, particularly in terms of poverty reduction and the promotion of sustainable development." Niebel reaffirmed the German government's commitment to providing ongoing development assistance to Laos, particularly to its projects relevant to the 7th Lao National Social-Economic Development Plan and the Millennium Development Goals. During the meeting, both sides discussed about the planned achievements of the development cooperation plan between Germany and Laos from 2011 to 2013, which focuses on several key areas, including the effective implementation of rural development projects, sustainable economic development, vocational training, infrastructure development, human resource development, and agricultural and environmental protection. In fiscal year 2010 to 2011, the German government authorized the provision of financial aid to Laos valued at more than 31 million euros to undertake the programs it is supporting and provide technical assistance, according to the paper.
Now, Asian shares were mixed today after US and European markets gave Greece's crucial bailout only a lukewarm reaction. Hong Kong was off 0.07% of 15.01 points in morning trade at 21,463.71. But Shanghai was up to 0.45% or 10.73 points at 2,392.16. And Tokyo was up 0.65% or 61.53 points at 9,524.55. Hong Kong-quoted internet shopping portal Alibaba.com rocketed 43% on an offer by its Chinese parent company, itself part-owned by US giant Yahoo, to take it private at the same price it floated at in 2007. On Tuesday, Eurozone finance ministers agreed on a new 237 billion euro, all about $310 billion bailout package designed to keep Greece in a single currency in return for tough budget cuts and close oversight of its government. But Mitul Kotecha, strategist at Crédit Agricole, said in a note the fact that the deal was highly expected to play a role in the unenthusiastic reaction. However, markets may also be cautious given the major tasks that still lie ahead, including a tough reform timetable for Greece, parliamentary approvals in various countries, and implementations of the private sector debt swap. In New York on Tuesday, the Dow Jones Industrial Average topped 13,000 for the first time since May 2008, before falling back to close nearly flat. The blue chip Dow closed up 0.12% at 12,965.69, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite slipped 0.11% to 2,948.57. European stock markets also closed lower Tuesday as initial enthusiasm faded on concerns more will need to be done about Greece. In Asian trade, the euro failed to build significantly on its gains following the Greek deal, with dealers saying the nation's economy remains in a poor state and Athens faces a giant task in sticking to tough reforms. The single currency was mixed, buying $1.3225 and 105.61 yen in early Asian trade from $1.3238 and 105.50 yen in New York late yesterday. According to Dow Jones Newswire, Chris Gore, currency analyst at Gold Markets in Melbourne, said in a note. While Greek austerity measures put in place provide a long-term plan to reduce the nation's budget deficit, it does little to assist growth in the region, with potentially years of sub-zero growth on the horizon. The dollar rose to 79.85 yen from 79.69 yen. New York's main oil contract, West Texas Intermediate crude for delivery in April, shed 41 cents to 105.84 US dollars per barrel, and Brent North Sea crude for April settlement was down 20 cents at 120.43 US dollars. Gold was at 1,755.10 US dollars an ounce at 3:30 GMT from 1,737.10 on Tuesday.
Well, good Rashad. It's now time for the CEO talk with our editor interviewing the CEO of Thailand Management Association. And we will leave you guys with this special interview. So that's it. Same time, same place, same channel tomorrow, Monday to Friday, 12 to 1 p.m.
Feedback and comments are welcome. Like us on Facebook and follow us on our Twitter account. I am Nirasha Malisaklami.
อันดับพัชรานเดชาพุทธรังสีสวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีค่ะ
Today, my guest is Kun Tevin Wongwanit, Chairman of Thailand Management Association. สวัสดีครับ คุณเทวิน
สวัสดีครับคุณนพคุณ
Welcome to the program.
My pleasure.
See, Thailand Management Association or TMA is going to hold the Asean Business Forum 2012 on February 28 and 29 here in Bangkok. Kun Tevin, what is the objective of this event?
Yes, Thailand Management Association or TMA has been holding the ASEAN Business Forum for 3 consecutive years, and this year is a continuity of the program that we held from 2009-2010 in order to prepare the business community for the ASEAN Economic Community to be in effect in 2015.
Yes.
2009 we held the ASEAN Economic Community for the first ASEAN Business Forum for the first time, with the focus on updating the preparation for the ASEAN Economic Community.
Yes.
And 2010 we focus on collaboration for competitiveness. And for this year, I think the theme would be to emphasize on connectivity of the members of the ASEAN business communities.
Yes. Can you talk about who are going to be the speakers at this event?
Yes. We receive a very good response, feedback from the speakers that we invited.
Yes.
There will be speakers representing 6 of the out of 10 ASEAN nations,
yes.
And also some additional speakers from Japan, from Korea, and also from the EU and the US. So some of the key speakers, for example, Dr. Surin Pitsuwan, who's the Secretary General of ASEAN,
Yes.
will be making the keynote address. Dr. Pailin Chuchotawan of PTT Group,
Yes.
CEO of PTT Group. Dato Nasser Razak, the group CEO of CIMB, will be also coming to Bangkok to give a speech.
Yes.
Kun Kan Drakun Hun of the SCG Group
Siam
will
Cement
also,
Group.
yes, Siam Cement Group, which is the very large conglomerate in Thailand,
Yes.
will be speaking about the human capital. There are also, I think one of the key ones where we do not normally see as a speaker
Yes.
is the group CEO of the Toyota, Mr. Takahiro Iwase.
I see.
And he has accepted to come to speak at the ASEAN Business Forum this year. Mr. Stuart Dean, the president of GE ASEAN, will also be here.
Yes.
And plus the Stock Exchange of Thailand president, Kun Jarampon Chotikasatian, will also
Yes.
be addressing the capital and financial market for the ASEAN common capital market.
I see.
That's just the example.
Yes. Kun Tevin, can you talk about the ASEAN connectivity? How important is it to Thailand and other ASEAN countries?
Yes, connectivity meaning we need to communicate. We need to be able to share experience. We need to be able to utilize the strength of each ASEAN nation. And with the theme of the ASEAN Economic Community in 2015 as the background,
Yes.
there will be a free flow of goods and service. The market will be expanded from now in Thailand we have 60 million people.
Yes.
It will be 600 million people for the whole ASEAN community. There will be free flow of investment. So business people can look at investment in different countries in this ASEAN region without obstacle. Manufacturing base will be common in ASEAN. There will be free flow of fundings of capital. You can seek fundings from anywhere within these 10 nations.
Yes.
And also there will be freer flow of people traveling in and out among these 10 nations. So you can pick and choose the skilled laborers and professionals to support your business in order to achieve the most efficient cost for your manufacturing. So I think connectivity is very important in all angles of the business.